What I'm about to reveal represents the most aggressive winter weather signal we've tracked all season long, and 75 million Americans need to prepare immediately. Multiple model systems have just converged on something that could fundamentally change winter weather across the eastern United States over the next 2 weeks. We're tracking not one, but potentially two separate winter storm opportunities that could bring snow as far south as the Gulf Coast states. If you live anywhere from Texas to Maine, what happens in the next 48 hours of model guidance will determine your winter weather fate. Smash that like button right now, because the atmospheric setup developing over the next 2 weeks has all the ingredients for truly historic winter weather. Both the European model and GFS are painting a picture that should grab everyone's attention across the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast corridor. What makes this pattern particularly explosive is how the models are handling the southern stream energy and Arctic air interaction mechanisms. Drop your exact location in the comments right now, and I'll provide targeted analysis for your area as these dangerous systems develop. My name is Mitch, and over the next 18 minutes, you'll discover why this represents the most significant snow opportunity of the entire winter season. The first window we're monitoring closely spans from Wednesday through Thursday this week, with energy already showing up across the eastern regions. While the initial system appears to miss the optimal connection, we're seeing snow flying as far south as the Smoky Mountains and Tennessee Highlands. But here's where this story takes a dramatic turn. The European overnight run shows moisture desperately trying to connect with diving cold air masses. The models are painting a picture of multiple short waves and surface low-pressure systems developing at the base of this massive trough. For Atlanta residents, the first window brings mainly rain, but the atmospheric ingredients for snow are beginning to align just north of the metro area. Philadelphia and New York could see some accumulation from northern stream energy, though this first round isn't the blockbuster event we're tracking. Washington, D.C. area residents need to pay extremely close attention to temperature trends as we transition into the more significant pattern developing this weekend. Subscribe immediately and hit that notification bell, because what's coming this weekend represents a completely different level of winter weather threat. The second and more dangerous window opens this weekend and extends into early next week, with unprecedented model agreement on substantial winter weather. What's absolutely remarkable about this setup is how the model shows snow diving as far south as northern Tennessee and the central Appalachians. The GFS model is particularly aggressive with southern snow placement, showing potential devastating impacts for areas like Nashville and Louisville. If you're not subscribed yet, you're missing critical updates. This channel provides the most detailed winter weather analysis available anywhere. Meanwhile, the European model takes a slightly different approach, but still maintains devastating southern snow potential across the Virginia mountain regions. For Boston and the New England corridor, both models suggest massive accumulation potential as the weekend system rapidly intensifies into something historic. The pattern signature we're witnessing includes that textbook ridge west, trough east configuration that historically produces major eastern seaboard events. Chicago and the Midwest aren't escaping this active pattern, with multiple clipper systems bringing relentless snow chances throughout the extended period. Share this video immediately with anyone who needs to prepare. What's particularly shocking is how the overnight European run developed that Gulf Coast low-pressure system. This low-pressure system showed snow reaching the southeastern coastline, which represents an extremely rare and significant atmospheric development. The teleconnection patterns, including the MJO phase progression, support sustained winter weather potential, extending well into late January and beyond. For our viewers in Charlotte and the Carolina-Piedmont region, this pattern represents the most significant snow opportunity we've seen this winter season. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind. The key factor we're monitoring is how well the northern and southern jet streams coordinate. Temperature profiles across Richmond and Norfolk show the potential for that critical cold air damming that supports devastating snow accumulation events. Before we dive deeper into the technical breakdown, I need to hear from you about which specific cities and regions require detailed forecasts. The most requested locations get priority analysis in tonight's emergency update, so drop your city name in the comment section right now. The model consistency we're witnessing at this range suggests something truly historic is brewing for winter weather enthusiasts across the eastern states. What started as subtle energy in the extended forecast has evolved into legitimate blockbuster storm potential, with jaw-dropping model agreement. Like this video if you want to see more detailed city-by-city breakdowns. The Southern Stream moisture transport mechanism is setting up perfectly. This moisture is preparing to interact with the diving Arctic air mass from the north in ways that could produce absolutely unforgettable winter weather. Detroit and Cleveland could see significant lake effect enhancement on the backside of these systems as they track through the Great Lakes region. For Pittsburgh and the Ohio Valley, the terrain effects could produce absolutely massive snow totals where elevation favors cold air retention. But here's what's keeping me up at night. The timing sequence shows potential for both quick-hitting systems and longer duration events. What's most encouraging is how the models maintain devastating winter weather potential even after the initial wave passes through our target zones. The La Niña to El Niño transition we're experiencing creates once-in-a-decade opportunities for southern latitude snow events that don't typically occur. Comment below if you've been following our winter weather coverage. This represents exactly the explosive payoff we've been anticipating for weeks. The atmospheric momentum is clearly shifting toward a configuration that favors simultaneous significant winter weather across multiple geographic regions. Buffalo and Syracuse should prepare immediately for potentially historic lake effect snow events as these systems enhance the regional snow machine. The extended range outlook suggests this isn't just a one-time event, but rather the beginning of a sustained, active winter pattern. For international viewers, this pattern represents classic North American winter weather dynamics at their most active and devastating operational level. The confidence level continues to skyrocket with each model run as we approach these critical time windows for explosive winter storm development. Share this analysis with everyone you know because the next 48 to 72 hours of model guidance will be absolutely critical for finalizing impact forecasts. What we're witnessing represents a fundamental shift from the quiet winter pattern into something much more dynamic and potentially dangerous. The model consensus suggests we're entering the most active and threatening phase of winter weather we've seen this season across the eastern United States. Let me walk you through exactly what the latest European model is showing us because honestly, it's pretty remarkable how this is all setting up. That low pressure system we've been monitoring across the Midwest and central states is currently delivering wintry conditions to the upper Midwest. This system packs some real punch too. We're actually seeing thunderstorm activity and severe weather potential underneath it continuing through tomorrow. By Wednesday, that thunderstorm activity persists across the deep south, stretching into the southeast and even touching the lower mid-Atlantic regions. The primary low will have tracked well up into Canada by then, but here's where it gets absolutely fascinating and potentially dangerous. We're simultaneously watching wintry weather develop across eastern Colorado, eastern New Mexico, portions of Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas simultaneously. Multiple things happening at once here, which tells you just how incredibly active this atmospheric pattern is becoming across the continent. Saturday is when things really start to evolve in an absolutely intriguing and potentially explosive direction for winter weather enthusiasts. A new area of low pressure begins establishing itself somewhere over the Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania tri-state region. Picture this atmospheric setup: cold front underneath, warm front above, and lake effect snow developing over the Great Lakes behind all this activity. Meanwhile, thunderstorms and potential severe weather continue across a massive territory from Louisiana through Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia. South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and North Carolina all get involved in this incredibly dynamic and dangerous atmospheric situation. The Mid-Atlantic gets heavily involved too. This is an extremely busy and dynamic atmosphere we're dealing with over the next several days. Here's where the real story begins and why you need to pay extremely close attention. That Arctic air finally makes its grand entrance Sunday. Out west, they've been dealing with cold and snowy conditions, but now they're transitioning to high pressure and much warmer temperature regimes. Meteorologists call this a positive PNA pattern, and it fundamentally changes how the Arctic air behaves across the continental United States. Instead of plowing straight through the middle of the country, the Arctic air and that western ridge avoid each other completely. The result? That absolutely frigid air takes the scenic route, arcing up and over, then diving directly into the eastern states. By Sunday, you can clearly see the cold air anchoring itself across the eastern regions in ways that support major snow production. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't the most brutal Arctic outbreak just yet, but the atmospheric pattern signature is absolutely unmistakable. Ridge in the west, trough in the east. That's a massive departure from what we experienced earlier this week across the country. Fast forward to Tuesday, the east remains cooler but not extremely cold yet, with some snow showers developing across key regions. These snow showers target the Midwest, Great Lakes, and portions of the Northeast, though the first few days stay relatively manageable overall. But then Wednesday arrives, and this is where my attention really locks in, and why you should be paying extremely close attention. The southern stream starts flexing serious moisture for midweek. This setup represents absolutely prime nor'easter territory for major impacts. Cold air racing in from the north, subtropical moisture surging up from the south. When these ingredients connect properly, massive East Coast snowstorms result. On this particular model run, the connection doesn't quite happen perfectly yet, but we see that low sitting offshore near the coast. We have cold air near the coast, but they're not linking up in that explosive way that produces absolutely blockbuster snow totals. However, and this is absolutely crucial, we have enough time for these details to shift dramatically as we approach the actual event. If the storm track trends even slightly westward, these same areas suddenly become ground zero for absolutely devastating snow accumulation. Take a look at Thursday. Notice how the ridge out west has amplified substantially while the eastern trough has deepened and expanded. This brings much more substantial Arctic reinforcement compared to the previous days, supporting major snow development across the mid-Atlantic. That Arctic reinforcement supports the snow showers developing across the mid-Atlantic and Northeast as the overall pattern intensifies dramatically. Friday delivers another nor'easter attempt that produces some mid-Atlantic and southern New England snowfall with significant accumulation potential. Similar to its predecessor, it's not perfectly synced with the cold air in a way that would generate an absolutely massive historic event. Meanwhile, the plains and Midwest get absolutely hammered by intense snow showers, courtesy of a clipper system diving down through Minnesota and Iowa. This clipper carries even more potent Arctic air, essentially reinforcing the entire cold pattern and setting up additional snow opportunities. By Saturday, we observe an even deeper trough, and here's what makes this one particularly noteworthy and potentially explosive. It links up beautifully with the southern stream positioned over Texas and Louisiana, creating opportunities for historic southern snow events. The models even show mixed snowfall and rainfall for central Texas, which is quite unusual and demonstrates the pattern's incredible strength. Obviously, at this range, we're talking about possibilities rather than certainties, but it demonstrates that the pattern supports these southern connections. That evolution continues into Sunday with another nor'easter trying to develop just offshore, riding along that entrenched cold air mass. This one tracks slightly too far out to sea for maximum coastal impacts, but we still end up with significant snowfall along the eastern seaboard. So that makes 3 separate nor'easter threats we're monitoring between roughly January 14th and 19th. An absolutely remarkable active pattern. The Clipper train keeps rolling too. Another system drops through the Midwest and Great Lakes around the 19th with additional snow potential. This system eventually slides into the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast, maintaining the active winter weather pattern throughout the region. Even by January 21st, the pattern holds absolutely firm with that ridge west, trough east configuration maintaining its strength. This signals a prolonged cold period which aligns perfectly with what we've been anticipating for mid to late January across the eastern states. Now, let me share what the GFS model reveals because it adds absolutely critical context to this developing winter weather situation. The GFS shows this warm pattern ending around January 13th through 15th, agreeing with the European model on the crucial timing. It picks up that nor'easter signal where the northern and southern jets almost connect, but maintain just enough separation initially. This creates a near miss around January 14th and 15th. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating and potentially historic. For January 16th, the GFS develops a nor'easter over the Gulf that tracks offshore the southeast while potent Arctic air pours in. The result? A far southeastern snow event affecting South Carolina and North Carolina with potentially significant accumulation. Now, having watched the GFS for about 8 years, I've noticed a consistent tendency that's absolutely crucial for forecasting accuracy. When the GFS shows snow over coastal areas of the Carolinas, it typically trends northwestward over subsequent model runs. So if this signal persists, there's excellent reason to expect the impact zone shifting toward the mid-Atlantic and beyond. That low tracks awfully close to the coastline with nice northward movement. Apply the typical GFS correction of trending northwest. Suddenly we're looking at absolutely prime positioning for something truly major along the entire East Coast corridor. Around January 18th and 19th, the GFS shows better connection potential for a snow event across Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. The extended range reveals more horizontal storm tracks crossing the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and into the eastern seaboard. This is absolutely reminiscent of those December systems we tracked, suggesting sustained activity rather than isolated events. Temperature-wise, the European model confirms our warm conditions persist through the weekend before the first significant cool down arrives. That initial shot isn't brutally cold, just noticeably cooler than recent temperatures. Then we briefly warm and briefly cool again. But approaching January 15th and beyond, the atmospheric complexion changes absolutely dramatically across the eastern half of the country. Those greens, purples, and magentas start appearing on the temperature maps, indicating substantial Arctic air penetrating deep into eastern regions. Another reinforcing shot arrives at the model run's end, and the escalation pattern stands out absolutely clearly to meteorologists. Each successive cold wave arrives with greater intensity and prominence, building toward potentially historic winter weather impacts. From this Sunday forward, through the entire extended period, we're looking at a fundamentally colder regime across the eastern United States. The GFS largely agrees with this assessment. Warm air yields to cold by Sunday with brief moderation, then brief cooling cycles. Then progressively more intense Arctic intrusions as we advance through the period, creating multiple opportunities for significant snow events. Precipitation patterns tell an absolutely fascinating story that winter weather enthusiasts need to understand completely. The West faces dramatically reduced precipitation totals as high pressure and warmer temperatures dominate the region completely. That ridge essentially deflects storms around rather than through the western region, forcing them underneath and over the top. Systems track underneath and over the top, avoiding that blocking pattern entirely and focusing energy on the eastern states. The snowfall projections reflect this dramatically. Western areas drop well below normal, while the Midwest and Great Lakes see elevated totals. The Ohio Valley experiences substantially elevated snow totals, while the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast appear positioned for significant accumulation. The Mid-Atlantic and Northeast appear least impacted on the current European run, but remember those near misses we discussed earlier. Any slight westward shift in storm tracks dramatically increases snow potential for those critical coastal communities and metropolitan areas. So here's the absolute bottom line that everyone from Texas to Maine needs to understand about this developing pattern. We're transitioning from an unusually warm January pattern into something much more winter-like starting this coming Sunday. Multiple nor'easter threats exist between roughly January 14th and 19th, with additional opportunities extending beyond that time frame. Arctic reinforcements keep arriving through the extended period, supporting sustained winter weather potential rather than isolated events. The east faces an active, cold, and potentially very snowy stretch, while the west deals with an extended dry and mild pattern. I'll keep tracking these systems daily as the details sharpen and the atmospheric setup becomes clearer for impact forecasting. The next week to 2 weeks could deliver some absolutely memorable winter weather for millions of people across multiple states. This represents exactly what winter weather enthusiasts have been hoping to see materialize throughout this entire winter season. The MJO progression we discussed earlier supports this active pattern extending well into late January and potentially early February. What we're seeing is a fundamental shift from neutral conditions into a phase that historically favors eastern United States snow production. The teleconnection indices are aligning in ways that support sustained rather than transient winter weather across our target regions. For those following the technical aspects, the NAO and AO trends support the ridge west, trough east pattern maintenance. This isn't just a brief cold snap we're discussing. This represents a potentially sustained period of active winter weather. The La Niña to El Niño transition creates unique atmospheric dynamics that historically produce unexpected southern snow events. Cities like Atlanta, Charlotte, and Richmond could see their most significant snow opportunities in years during this pattern. Meanwhile, traditional snowbelt areas like Buffalo, Syracuse, and Boston position themselves for potentially historic accumulation totals. The Great Lakes region could see enhanced lake effect snow production with the sustained cold airflow across relatively warm lake waters. Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Milwaukee all position themselves within this enhanced lake effect snow production zone. The Ohio Valley, including Cincinnati, Columbus, and Pittsburgh, sits perfectly positioned for multiple snow opportunities from different systems. As we approach the critical January 14th to 19th window, model agreement continues strengthening rather than weakening. This gives meteorologists increased confidence that something significant will occur, though exact details remain to be determined. The key will be tracking these systems day by day as they develop and refine their tracks closer to the actual events. For emergency preparedness purposes, now is the time to begin reviewing winter weather plans and ensuring adequate supplies are available. This is particularly important for areas that don't typically see significant snow, but could be impacted during this unusual pattern. Southern cities should pay special attention to potential ice storm development if temperatures hover near the freezing mark. The transition zone between rain and snow could create extremely dangerous travel conditions across the Mid-Atlantic corridor. Northern areas should prepare for potentially prolonged snow events rather than just quick-hitting systems during this pattern. The sustained nature of this pattern suggests multiple opportunities for snow accumulation rather than isolated events. Stay locked in for our evening emergency update, where we'll break down the latest model trends and provide city-specific impact forecasts. This pattern has all the hallmarks of producing truly memorable winter weather that could significantly impact millions of people. The evolution we're tracking represents exactly what winter weather enthusiasts have been desperately hoping to see materialize this season. Model consistency at this range suggests high confidence in the overall pattern, even if specific details continue evolving. The atmospheric momentum clearly favors sustained winter weather rather than the quiet pattern we've experienced recently. Remember to like this video if the analysis helped you understand what's developing, and subscribe for continued detailed coverage. Share this information with anyone who might be impacted by this developing pattern. Accurate information saves lives during winter storms. Hit that notification bell so you receive immediate updates as these systems develop and approach your specific area. Your engagement helps this critical winter weather information reach people who need it most across the eastern United States. The comments section remains the best place to request specific city forecasts and ask questions about your area's potential impacts. I'll continue providing detailed responses to location-specific questions as these systems develop over the coming days. This represents the kind of pattern that meteorologists study and winter weather enthusiasts dream about experiencing. The combination of timing, atmospheric setup, and model agreement creates a rarely seen opportunity for significant winter weather. What happens over the next 2 weeks could define how we remember the winter of 2025 across the eastern United States. The pattern evolution suggests this could become a benchmark winter for comparison with future seasons. Stay prepared, stay informed, and remember that preparation and accurate information are our best defenses against winter weather. I'll continue monitoring these developing systems around the clock and providing updates as conditions change and evolve. Thank you for watching this detailed breakdown of what could become the most significant winter weather pattern of the season. Together, we'll track every development and ensure everyone has the information needed to prepare for whatever winter brings. The atmosphere is clearly signaling major changes ahead, and we'll be here every step of the way to guide you through it. This has been your comprehensive winter weather outlook, and I'll see you in tonight's emergency update with the latest model guidance. Stay tuned, stay prepared, and most importantly, stay safe as we head into this potentially historic winter weather pattern. The most significant winter weather developments are still ahead of us, and we'll track every detail together. Remember that winter weather preparation saves lives, and accurate forecasting helps communities respond appropriately to dangerous conditions. Until our next update, monitor local conditions, follow official warnings, and keep checking back for the latest developments. This winter weather pattern represents everything we've been anticipating, and now it's time to see how it all unfolds. The atmosphere has spoken clearly about what's coming, and together, we'll experience and document this potentially historic winter weather. Stay weather aware, stay prepared, and I'll see you soon with continued coverage of this developing winter weather situation. This is just the beginning of what could become the winter weather event that defines the entire 2025 season for millions of Americans.